So in this video, I'm going to cover 6 use cases of ChatGPT's code interpreter that I think have a very real potential for increasing sales, LTV, and margin if you own, operate, or work in an e-commerce business or a Shopify business. The TLDR version is that code interpreter has just been wickedly awesome. To me, it's kind of like having my own data scientist sidekick at all hours of the day who only costs $20 a month and never gets tired of my requests, my questions, my clarifications, and even when I tell it that I think it's wrong and to redo something and to do it again in like a few seconds. So let's jump into it. All right, so use case number 1, in my opinion, is gaining clarity on your first order products and offers that lead to the highest LTVs. So across your entire SKU set, there are products that lead to different LTVs. Let's say you run an athleisure company, kind of like Inaka Power that I'm showing on screen right now, and you sell shorts, you sell t-shirts, you sell leggings, you sell shoes that I don't think Inaka sells yet, but maybe they will at some point. The LTV of customers who come in from purchasing leggings as their first order versus something like tank tops or shorts may actually be very meaningfully different. Maybe leggings customers are worth $300 over 60 days, and tank top customers are only worth $150 over 60 days. Knowing this may nudge you in the direction of upping your ad spend and creative output on leggings relative to tank tops in that case. So how this relates to code interpreter is that you can use code interpreter and natural languaging, like talking with normal words, to discover these nuances in a matter of just seconds, even if you don't have a sophisticated data science background or someone on your team who's really smart in data science, or you're not paying for an app that's really expensive that does these analyses for you. And I've used these apps before and they're awesome, but there's always nuances that I can't pull out because they're not pre-made in those apps. So with code interpreter, you can actually get as granular and as nuanced as you want. So let's take a look at an example within code interpreter with some dummy data that I've loaded up into some sheets. All right, cool. So now we're in code interpreter. And what I've done here is I've exported from Shopify an orders export. And it's spat out a whole bunch of CSVs. I've told code interpreter to combine and merge those CSVs into one. And then now I'm asking it one question here. So a prompt here. And so the prompt that I asked it was, share with me the top 10 most commonly purchased products in the first purchase of the top 20% highest spending customers. Organize your findings in a table. Include the average lifetime spend of customers who purchased each product, and make sure to omit tip as one of these products. The reason why I want to omit tip is because I don't really care about how that's performing right now. What I care most about is what are the actual products that are leading to good what are the products that are leading to good LTV outcomes when ordered as part of a customer's first purchase. So code interpreters spat out a nice table for me that's really easy to understand. Obviously, the product names here have been swapped to be dummy product names, and this data is for the purpose of demonstration so that we're not revealing anything confidential. But the effectiveness of using code interpreter can still be seen here. So something that's sticking out to me here is that product number 14, the average lifetime spend is one of the highest here with a little bit more significant data than product 86. That's really cool to see because that means that if I want to scale my new customer acquisition, product number 14 may be a product that I want to pay more attention to because it's leading to higher LTV outcomes. And an important nuance with this data that I want to point out is that just because these numbers are small, being more dummy data, the effectiveness and impact of code interpreter, I think, still stands. If you add another couple zeros here, then that data is much more meaningful and you can rely on it for decisions. But besides that, an important consideration for doing an assessment like this is to remember that your LTV across your entire SKU set may often be looked at and reported as an average. So, like even in Shopify, for example, they report AOV, shop wide. But within your averages, there's going to be SKUs that are doing better and worse than the average that have meaningful consequences of paying more or less attention to, especially when it comes to how you set your CAC targets for new customer acquisition and also how you make decisions on what products and offers to make to drive new customer acquisition versus ascension of new customers. Let's hop into use case number 2, which is understanding the product mix that helps with driving the highest LTV. So let's say you operate a supplement company like Obvi here. I've been following them for a while, so I have them pulled up and big fan of them. And they've got a pretty robust SKU set. They sell protein powder, they sell capsules, they sell detox capsules. They have a hello, they have a goodbye. So they got a lot of stuff. And what would be interesting to know is that if a product like their collagen burn is driving a lot of net new acquisition for them, it'd be really important to know what products are helping to ascend these customers to a higher LTV. Maybe it's going to detox and then hello, and then going to a protein powder, let's say. Or maybe it's a mix of going from the superfood iced tea to a hello to a protein powder, right? So knowing the path and the mix of products that customers should be presented with throughout the journey of their experience with your brand is really important to know, and also helpful when you know what that mix is, to be intentional in how you orchestrate that experience for new customers. So going back into Code Interpreter, we can do this analysis pretty quickly, at least way quicker than it used to take me dealing with sheets and numbers and all that stuff. Now I can just use words. And so in our dummy data here, I was a fan of product number 14. I like that it had a higher purchase count and a higher LTV. So what I can do is I can ask Code Interpreter for customers who purchase product 14. And what's being implied here is that this is one of the products that helps with driving new customer acquisition at a higher LTV. What are 10 other products that are commonly purchased throughout their lifetime? Share your results on the table, including the number of times these other products are purchased by these customers. And the intention here is that I want to end up with a list of products that if you bought product number 14, you also bought these. And I want to organize them from most popular to least popular so that I can organize my retention marketing efforts in that order of priority. So what it spat back out to me was exactly that. And again, if we add a couple zeros here or 3 more zeros here, this data becomes way more significant and meaningful to make decisions with. But what's really cool here is that the analysis and assessment would have taken me or someone else on the team days maybe to do or hours to do. Now it takes less than a second. You just punch in a question and ChatGPT tells you. So this can help me a lot with deciding how I want to go about my retention marketing and turning new customers into customers who purchase other products that I know or I have a high chance of success with in presenting to them to actually buy. All right, let's move on to use case number 3, which is understanding your highest value customers. So similar to your product line, there are usually cohorts of your customers who are more valuable to your business than others. I have Sour Strips pulled up here. A big fan of Max Tuning, who started this, and they've grown really quickly. I think they're in HEB, maybe they're in Target now. And they've got a lot of different products and different SKUs. They have lots of different flavors. They have variety pack. They have a starter pack. They have an original sampler, a newbie sampler. And so it'd be really interesting to know, if I was working with sour strips, I would want to know what the LTVs of these customers are, how much margin customers who come in on each of these products produce um, when part of their first purchase. And I'd also want to know some other interesting things, right? I'd want to know potentially, is there a certain state or a city that produces more revenue and margin than other states or cities? Um, with my highest value customers, do they tend to aggregate around certain types of products or flavors? Whatever it is, it's worth knowing so you can use it as feedback to optimize your processes. And code interpreting makes this really easy. So let me show you another example. All right, so we're back in code interpreter. And let's say, as a very starting point, what I want to do is just find out who are the top 20 spenders that are part of my business. So I punch in the prompt here, share with me the names of the top 20% spenders in the sheet, replace their real names with dummy names, just for the sake of making sure that this is all dummy data. So it tells us all these names and it tells us who has spent the most, right? So that's really a really cool starting point, just to know who your highest spenders are so you can take care of them in a different way and maybe even send them personalized offers, connect with them, interview them, and so forth. The next prompt that I threw in was share with me the top 5 most commonly purchased products in the first purchase of the top 20% high spending customers. Organize your findings in a table, include the average lifetime spent of customers who purchase each product, and make sure to omit tip as one of the products. And so it spat it out. And this is really cool. So now I can understand, for the people who have spent the most amount of money, what are the products that they're actually spending their money on, and what's common across these customers, and what are the products that they like that maybe the bottom spenders, contrast that, and we can contrast that to the bottom spenders. Another prompt that I threw in here was share with me the cities that the top 20% of spenders are from, organizing in descending order of popularity. So we got a bunch from Madison, some from Springfield, some from Louisville, right? And this is really cool to know, because if you're starting to get into retail or if you're doing direct mail, this could be really interesting information so that you're organizing your campaigns and strategic decisions around data instead of guessing. And you can access the data so much quicker with Code Interpreter, which is why I'm so excited about it. All right, let's move on to use case number 4, which is understanding cohort-specific performance over time. So let's say 2 months ago, you ran a month-long promotion that was a buy one, get one free site-wide sale. And then last month, you ran a month-long promotion that was buy one, get two free site-wide. What would be really valuable to know is how these groups of customers, especially net new customers, behave over time. So for example, maybe the first group comes back and they spend 50% more in addition to their initial AOV in the first 60 days of being a customer. And the second group only spends 100% more instead of 50% more. That would be really important to know. And as a side note, this is really, really important to know, especially if you're choosing to not be first order profitable and you're expecting and planning on your LTV being what brings you into the black when it comes to your new customer acquisition. All right, so the prompt that I used here was tell me the average 60-day LTV of customers who purchased in January 2023, Feb, March, April, May, June, respectively, and report your findings in a table. So it does what it needs to do, and then it spits out the findings over here. So the cohort of customers who came in January on average spent $98 in the first 60 days of being a customer, February 108, March 105, and so forth. So how it's relevant to me is that in January, I might have done a sale that was buy one, get one free. February, 25% off. March, a new free shipping threshold. April, free plus shipping, right? And so it'd be really interesting for me to know and correlate, okay, this offer does this LTV, that offer does that LTV, and I can make some decisions on what I want to use for driving new customers or how I want to use it. So I might want to have two different offers going on two different landing pages at the same time to appeal to different types of customers. All right, let's move on to use case number 5, which is understanding what ads or campaigns in your media buying are hitting KPIs across multiple metrics. So for me, one of the annoying things with ad platforms is that you can't really look, at least in platform, at metrics using and functions in the way that I personally like to. So for example, if you want to see which of your campaigns, ad sets, or ad groups and ads have, let's say, a spend of over 10 grand, they're hitting CPA under $50, the ROAS is over 2.3, and your CTRs are over 2.5, and your hook rates are above 30%. Right? Let's say you want to look at all these metrics, which I personally don't, but let's say, I usually look at CPA and spend, but if you want to look at all 5, it's kind of hard to sometimes in these ad platforms. Code Interpreter, though, makes it a lot easier than, let's say, exporting to a Google Sheet or to an Excel file and then having to run some complex Excel formulas, which are totally fine to do. But if you prefer not working with large spreadsheets anymore and you just want to ask an assistant, hey, which of these campaigns or ad sets or ads are hitting all of these KPIs that I'm specifying, and tell me what they are, now there is a possibility of doing that without having to ask a person to do it. So within Code Interpreter, here's an example. I just uploaded some data that we have from an ad account. And I asked it to replace a bunch of campaign names, just so that we don't reveal anything confidential. And I want to show you part of this process too, because it's pretty cool. So just told it basically replace the campaign names, dummy names, told it to proceed with no specific preference on how it named it. So I went ahead and did that, and then asked it, the question just as a sampler question to illustrate how cool this is. So what are the campaigns that have a spend of over $2,000 and have a cost per purchase of less than $25? And so it listed a whole bunch of these out for me. And so if I'm making decisions around, what campaigns I want to scale up, these would probably be ones that I want to scale up, right? This one spent, a little over 11 grand and it's hitting great CPAs under 25. This one, 23 grand or 2,300. It's hitting great CPAs. So these are a lot easier to find than having to sift through in-platform data. But where the power really comes is when you want to look at multiple metrics that require a lot of sorting. This is where the power is with Code Interpreter. All right, use case number 6, understanding what ads are hitting KPI, but they're not getting enough action. So one of the things that I routinely look for in ad platforms are ads that are hitting or beating my CPA targets, but not getting a ton of spend. And so I'm generally a big fan of just letting the platforms do their thing and decide how they want to allocate spend. But sometimes I like to take things into my own hands and see if I can shunt a little spend towards things to see if I do get a little more spend on the things that have some early signals. Does it actually perform well in the way I'm expecting it to? And does the early performance scale? And so Code Interpreter makes this really easy to do. As an example here, a prompt you could use here is, what are the campaigns that have an amount spent of less than $100 and a cost per purchase of less than $25, just for illustration. And so it actually spat this all out for me And one of the things I like about Code Interpreter is that you can actually make this look a lot easier to read. So I totally organize this info in a table. And so now I have a very clean layout of some up and coming campaigns, right? Spend is very, very low, but CPAs are looking good. And that could tell me to pay a little bit more attention to what's inside these campaigns, especially if a lot of these campaigns are different concepts or different angles or different big ideas and hooks that I'm testing to see if I can find a new way of communicating the selling proposition of a certain product or an offer. So that wraps up a quick overview of some starting use cases for Code Interpreter to just illustrate its utility. I'm definitely going to be leaning into it more since some analyses that used to take me days are now taking me seconds. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video and we'll see you in the next one.